Okay, folks, thank you very much for joining us today. And we're very fortunate to have Alan Smith with us from 132 Slot Car US and Scale Racing Center in Tacoma. How are you doing today, Alan?
Doing great. It's great to visit with you guys. I'm excited to chat about slot cars and hear what questions Saturn's going to grill me with.
Yeah, well, that'll be fun, won't it?
Yeah.
Nice to meet Alan face to face, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lots of packages arrive here from Alan, and it's always nice to chat it on the phone and everything. So thanks very much for agreeing to come on.
Oh no, it's interesting to do this. I mean, I think we have to reach the public in a different way than we did before. Before it was face to face. Now it's video links. It's the new way, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Sasha, I think they'll has some questions she wants to ask you, and let's go through those first, and we can take it from there.
So what age were you when you first got into slot cars, and how did you get into slot cars?
When I first started slot cars, I was probably about 5 years old.
Oh.
I visited with my parents and my brother, visited my rich uncle John, who lived in the posh part of London, and they had a full-size pool table, which is huge, and it was topped with plywood, and they had a complete Scalextric layout, good with chicanes, pit lanes, buildings, and I was just blown away. I mean, and that started what's been a lifetime interest with motor racing, cars and motorcycles, and originally Scalextric, and then back to Scalextric and other slot cars when I stopped racing motorcycles. So full circle.
Cool. Do you remember what were the cars at the time on that Scalextric?
Yeah, the cars at the time would have been like Lotus 16s and Coopers. I've probably got some. I will have a look in a bit. I've probably got a couple to show you, but these would have been. I mean, at the time, we thought they were amazing, but they more often didn't work than did work. Nowadays, we're so lucky with the quality of slot cars by comparison to when I started. But I don't know. It was that smell of ozone as the braids arch on the track, and just the look.
So, what's your favorite car and brand?
What is my favorite car? Now or then? Then my favorite car then was probably a Mini. I mean, I've always been into Minis. I have real Minis as well. So it was always a challenge on the original Minis. Yours, I don't know, did yours have the little guide? Were they front wheel drive, your ones? Or the rear wheel drive?
I think they were
front wheel drive ones were a challenge to keep running. But I always liked the Mini. I think because it's attainable, reachable to the average person. As real race cars are kind of exotic. But other than that, I think one in our first set was two red Coopers or Lotuses, the Formula Juniors with the steering and everything. And I have a story I'll admit over the internet. Hopefully my brothers never see this. But there was a red one and a green one, and actually a blue one. Red one and a blue one. That's right. And the red one was faster. Well, my brothers knew the red one was faster, and so everybody always wanted, including me, wanted the red one. Well, I sat there and I thought about it, and they're the same car. So I took all the internals out of the red one and put it in the blue one, and vice versa. Now I'm like, oh, I'll take the blue. I don't know, and they couldn't figure out how come I could win with the blue car against the red car.
So what's your favorite car and brand now?
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, I got loud, didn't it? Sorry. Now, I guess I'd have to go with BRM. They're an important company to me, and I like the fact that they're a small family-run business and passionate. Which car? Well, I'm partners with them on the Trans Am cars, which has been stalled a bit. labour, etc. And we will be doing the GT40 and the Datsun, which were two cars that I wanted to see done, and so did BRM. So we partner them on tooling, and this time, unlike the Trans Am, we won't attempt to build them here. We'll let them build them in Europe, but they'll be co-owned, and so I think I have a passion on those now because they're going to be cars with my company involved as well. But if I had to take one other on that, I think probably the 917 and the 512. They're just so much fun to run, and they're iconic cars from an era that I kind of grew up with, the 60s and late 60s. And that's why the GT40 as well. That will be when it's finished. It'll be my favourite.
Yeah, I have no doubt that we're big fans of those era cars as well. It's funny that actually kind of take those to our heart as well, you know. So they're with our favourite. We've so many 917Ks. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, the 917 is a great car, and it didn't have a very long lifespan, but it did change a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the GT4 as well, and the 5112, we love those as well. As you know, we ended up getting 3 of those 5112 M's from you. Just had to have the different versions.
The three different blue cars, the Sebring, Watkins Glen, and Daytona. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're hard to find now. We didn't make very many of them.
Yeah. Nice to have them, you know.
Yeah. Which do you prefer, Sasha, the 512 or the 917 Porsche? The 917.
Good choice.
Yeah, I think the 917 is probably a little bit easier to drive, a little bit. They're very similar. I mean, similar design chassis, and we found in the 24-hour last year the performance wasn't much between them. The 917 did win, but I think if that team, my team, if that team had driven the 512, we would have won with that as well. But only because we had David from BRM, and you'll meet him in the 24-hour, and he drives a stock car like a crazy man. we were having to tell him, slow down, you're going to wear the car out.
Drive it like you stole it.
Yeah.
Do you have a track at home?
Do I have a track at home? No, not anymore. I've got these huge tracks here. I always did have a track. Well, actually, no, I do have a track at home, but it's buried. But I don't have an operable track at home anymore. But I'm here so much all the time, trying to keep the business running, that I wouldn't have time to run on the track at home. Well, I used to have a track at home in our 2-car garage, but now it's full of motorcycles and minis.
Motorcycles and minis. Not a bad combo.
What type of tracks do you have in your store?
What sort of track? I have 2 big wooden tracks that came out of Spain. They're called a company called Concept Vario.
Before, actually.
Sorry?
I've heard of them before.
Yeah, they're designed like a plastic track in as far as they're sectional, and most of the Concept Vario tracks can be built in different configurations. Our 6-lane can, but our 8-lane was custom built with decreasing radius corners that can only be assembled one way. But the concept of Concept Vario was to kind of replace Carrera or any one of the bigger plastic tracks with a wood track that could be reconfigured. Unlike in America, where most of the tracks are designed, that's what they are. And they're fun tracks, magnetic braid, so you can run Scalextric cars on them without any problem. And also the magnetic braid lasts a lot longer than copper braid. It's very, very hard wearing. Very grippy, because they've got about 9 years of rubber built up on them. We don't run silicone tires. We only run rubber and sponge and urethane.
Yeah.
And so, like a real racetrack, they're grey in colour, but when you see them, they're actually black in the corners, and that's rubber.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. You've got plenty of grip laid down, as you mentioned before. You definitely don't mix those silicones with the rubber Euro paint. So just rip off all your hard work.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We for 2 years we at another location we had a different track, an old American track from the '60s, and for 2 years we did run silicone, but we found in silicone we'd have a few very dominant drivers because they knew something that nobody else knew. I don't know what it was. They never would admit it.
Yeah.
But when we changed to running sponge and rubber, it equalized the field more. It was less. There was less kind of voodoo or something going on. I mean, everybody, still the best drivers were winning, but now they weren't dominating. And I found that to be.
Do you have a track name?
Do I have a track name? Good question. No, we just call them the 6 lane and the 8 lane. You'll have to name them for us.
Yeah.
Do you have a track name for your track behind you?
What?
Do you have a track name for your track?
Oh yeah, we'll call it International Speedway.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, you'll have to help me. You'll have to help me think up a name for my tracks.
That's a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we go up.
Competition.
Excellent. Yeah, we got the guys over at Magnetic Racing to personalize some of the scenery kits for us, and we got the name and the logo put on the pit building, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great the work they do. I'm impressed with what they do.
How did you come up with the idea of starting scale racing?
Well, I'll go back to the name first, when it progresses into that. I mean, my first race slot cars or race slots in America, the commercial cars, which are very, very fast but don't look like cars. And it's fun, but I found that not many people understood what you were doing, and so because they don't look like real cars. And so that's when I kind of brought my Scalextric back over to America from England and started playing with it. And people saw that there was scale racing as well as racing. And I think if you're a car person, you like real cars, you can identify with what we're doing. So that made me want to build the Scale Racing Centre to get real people that are into real cars and car shows and car racing to get into this hobby as well. Because it's a hobby. Real racing's a hobby for most people. And it is a game, and this is a game as well. I know some people don't like that being said, but it is a game. You strategically move your race car around a board, the track, trying to beat the other opponents. So I like having a game center. It's difficult because obviously they're very expensive to have a big building. And I think the hobby really, its strength is now in people building tracks again at home. But originally we built the Scale Racing Centre to kind of thank and reward the people locally that supported us and wanted to race. And not many people are going to have a track this size at home. I couldn't. So I'm lucky to have this.
What size are the tracks there, Alan? What's that?
What size?
Yeah.
The 6 lane's 135 feet and the 8 lane is 116 feet. The 6 lane is very like a Carrera track or Holly car or whatever. It's cookie cutter. They're 45s, there's 90s, there's 180 returns, but they're all consistent radius.
Yeah.
The 8 lane was custom built to that design, so it's got the 2 decreasing radius corners, which make it much more of a challenge. It's easier to drive slow. When you first get here, most people gravitate towards the 8 lane because it's smaller. Everything's right in front of you, and you're really going left to right. If that makes sense. You're looking, because our driver stands, you look down on the track. You stand on the stand, looking down at the track. The 6 lane, the cars are going back and forth in front of you, but they're also going away from you and towards you, and that adds a whole new dynamic visually, gauging where to slow down. Where to brake. So the 6 lane theoretically is easier, and as long as you don't go too fast, but it's more intimidating at first. The 8 lane, once you suddenly realize you know how to drive, then you start going too fast in the decreasing radius corners. And I don't know if you found this, Sasha, but for most corners, especially on like a Carrera or Polycar or Scalextric track, you can accelerate out of the corner because usually the corners are constant radius. But with a decreasing radius, you have to slow down coming out of the corner. And so many people don't get it. I keep coming off them. I'm like, well, you're not slowing down. Well, yeah, but race car drivers don't slow down coming out of the corner. Yeah, they do if they're decreasing radius or they crash.
Yeah.
And one of them's downhill as well, which makes it even more tricky because momentum of the car carries you down the hill fast.
Yeah, that's actually an hour layout around to the right-hand side as you're looking at it. That's coming from downhill as well, and that can really catch you out there.
Yeah.
Ready. Sasha has gone very good at it now, I have to say, but you know, if somebody is around, that's the first place they'll go off.
Right. Yeah. We're on our 8 lane. They crash at the 2 decreasing radius corners the most. But have you noticed this, Sasha? The trick is to watch the rear of the car and not the front of it. You have to watch in front of you for other cars that have crashed, but really, ideally, you're controlling the rear of the car. So you watch what the rear of the car is doing. I mean, if you're watching the front, it's in a slot, and if it isn't, it's already too late, right? But the rear, when you see it moving, especially down when you come here on that decreasing radius corner, you see it starting to slide out. If you ease back, you can save it.
You know what? You've just uncovered my only last secret to beat Sasha now, and that's poor Sasha is obviously nowhere near as tall as I am, right? So, you know, I actually thought about it the other day. She should be standing up on something so she can see the track better, because I have a big advantage that way. So, maybe I should either have to sit down or put you up a little bit higher. Maybe that's my end of my victories from now on out.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how you like with the driver's stands that we have. Yeah. And it came about in 2 ways. One, we get people like standing by the track, and things would happen. In fact, we had one big race where it was coming down to the last seconds of the race, and the guy crashed, and we had a straightaway and 180 and another straightaway back. We're standing on the first straightaway, and he crashed on the other side. And so rather than stop and go around and get his car, he leant over the track, putting his hand on the first 8 lanes to reach over to the second set of 8 lanes to grab his car. He was the leader, but he'd crashed. When he put his hand down, he pinned the second place car to the track.
Oh, no.
And then the clock ran out.
Yeah.
And so he won. And so I'm like, obviously that caused some frustration between, anyway, and that to me just didn't seem right. And so then I went to a big race in Europe, and they had these driver stands where you stand up and back from the track. You can't touch the track, which you shouldn't do anyway if you're in the race, because you can knock other people off, and that's kind of not really fair. So we're looking down, which obviously then the height advantage of David won't be such an advantage, because even though you'll be higher up, but you get the same perspective looking down. And I think it's probably easier. I know when we were kids, it was great to get right down at the track and see the cars flash by, a bit like a train set, watching the train go by, but you don't really have the control. And, when you get above it, you can see it rotate, see it start to slide. Okay. And I think it's certainly for a big track, and it stops that guy leaning over and pinning somebody's car.
I could be in trouble now, Alan. I could be in big.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, it is a big equalizer, I think. Yeah.
What's your favorite part of running scale racing?
My favorite part of running scale racing, going home. No, no. My favorite part, I think, probably working for myself. I had a previous business to this, which was also slot cars, that evolved into becoming Scalextric USA, and I sold it to Scalextric. So then I was working for someone else, and that was fun, but it wasn't the same sort of fun as having your own business. And I get to make up the rules. sometimes I even remember them. No, I like interacting with people. I like trying to bring young people into the hobby. I do a lot of car shows, where I get a lot of people your age, and then I've been doing those for 20 odd years. So now I'm seeing them come in as adults with their children. I like that continuation. I don't think it should be a hobby that's just for adults.
No.
It does tend to be more for adults, but I think that's only because it's not getting great exposure. When kids see slot car racing, as I hope you know, I'm sure you know, it's fun, it's exciting, right? And who doesn't want to be a race car driver?
I want to be a race car driver when I'm older.
We're already a race car driver.
Yeah.
Now you just got to take it to another scale. Well, there's a lot that can be learned from slot car racing.
Yeah.
There really is. I mean, I went from slot car racing into real racing,
That's
and
great.
then back into slot car racing. I raced motorcycles and go-karts to a fairly high level.
What motorcycles were you racing?
When I lived in England, I raced Grand Prix bikes, older ones. So TZs, as we would say in England, and said TZs, 250s and 350s. Great fun. A lot of work. You're always working. Very short fuse. A real race bike. And then when I came over to America, I started racing production racing because I was living in California at the time,
okay.
and Suzuki, Honda, Kawasaki, and Yamaha all paid contingency money. Whereas in England, club racing, you're just spending your money unless you had a sponsor. With contingency money, you can potentially win money from the manufacturers. With $2,000 for a win in some of the races, I could come home with money in my pocket, or I could come home with a broken bike. Sometimes it was both, but no.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed racing because it taught me something that I think has done me fairly well later in life, and that is not to give up. Too many people give up. Something doesn't work for them, they just stop. Yeah. And in motorcycle racing, in racing of any kind, you've got to keep going, keep on pushing, never give up. And so that kind of, when I got into this, that taught me the same sort of principle in this.
My uncle used to say, nothing worthwhile is ever easy. Any cars there you can show us?
These cars?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how good is that. Can you
see that? Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Mark II GT40.
Very nice.
This will be coming out first. This is the one we will hopefully have for the 24-hour. The tooling's being finished right now.
Awesome.
And then the factory will paint up special cars for the 24-hour. So each team will get a special car and all the spare parts to race their car.
That's it.
We spend a lot of time with a guy who's a real expert at GT40s, trying to get all the details as correct as possible. The chassis is very similar to the 917 and 512, as you can see there.
Yeah, see that.
So obviously it'll have clear windows.
Yeah.
And you will have to fit lights in it. I mean, this is just a rapid prototype of the body, just to prove the concept.
Yeah, I always loved the GT40.
And then later, next year, this is the Mark I. Now, unlike a lot of companies, we felt that we couldn't do a good rendition of the Mark I by just making a Mark II and then taking the back end off and putting the Mark I back end on. So we made a complete different tool for the Mark I and the Mark II.
That's awesome.
Even down to details that aren't even on diecast, because there's only a couple of Mark I GT40s that had you can't really see it on this, but they have a door latch.
Yes.
There.
Yeah.
Most of them use the same as the Mark II, which was just like a blade. But on the wire cars that won at Le Mans in 68 and 69, they had a proper door latch. And so we tooled it so that we can do the door latch, but then also do the other cars that had the same door handle as the Mark II. So I think that's hopefully that the rivet counters enjoy that.
I think we'll enjoy that. We'll be really looking forward to getting our hands on those. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you'll see these prototypes of the 24-hour, and obviously we'll have the Mark I prototype, and you'll be running Mark IIs, and this will be the first time the Mark IIs have been raced.
Yeah.
And then another car that we are doing as a partnership with BRM is for the mini car and Group 2 series. I mean, technically it probably wasn't in that category, but by chassis design, it's the same as the Escorts and the Capris. And by size of the car, it's going to be right in there with them. And so this will be another good addition.
Yeah, definitely.
Popular car worldwide. And we've done, you're going to see this one. And then we've also done really different body.
Yeah.
I'll put that one down. You'll see this body. And this one's the one without the big flares. So this is more like the street car.
Yeah, okay. Very cool.
But I think, you know, it's important to do that. So we've tooled two completely different bodies.
Beautiful.
And try and capture the real look of this car.
Oh, that's fast. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. When any idea when people will be able to get their hands on those cars, Alan?
Well, they were supposed to be around about September, October time. But when BRM moved their factory, they bought a new building and they've got their own dedicated factory with everything in-house now, which is stunning. I've been there, and it's really going to improve everything for them. But it's taken longer than they thought. I mean, it's a bit like anything. We move house, and you think you've got everything in one removal van, and then you find 3 removal vans later. You've still got stuff to move. I think George Carlin made a joke about that. People collect stuff, right? Yeah. But they found that they had so much stuff that it took them a lot longer to get it all situated and organized. And but they're now coming online better. And I mean, it's why there's been a delay with the McLaren and the 911 Evo, is because they caught up in that snafu of having to stop and refit all the machines and get them all set up and balanced correctly, and then set up all the computer systems. And it looks easy from the outside looking in. You say, oh, that'd just take a weekend.
Certainly. We have both of those on pre-order actually. With
I know a lot of people do, and we appreciate it for that.
You know what? Wait, you know.
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating to be that delayed, but I think once they come out, you know, people will be really happy with them. And that GT90 series, which the first car we did was those the blue McLaren, and then the colored versions of it. Yeah. And we didn't do very many of them, a bit like the 512 and 917, only because they've been tooled several years ago. The bodies have been tooled and made, waiting for the COVID to be over, and then to be able to get back to making their 124th cars. Revo slots probably slowed BRM down a little bit because they've got so much demand with 132nd.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Yeah, their passion is 124. I mean, Revo slot is a partnership, which has helped them a lot, but they got to bring out some more of their 124 cars now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we have the that green and black version of that McLaren, and they're only, I think you were saying they're only 100 of each of those colors. So yeah, we love those.
Yeah, yeah, they could have sold worldwide probably 10 times what they'd made. There's a pent up demand, as there will be for the 962s when they bring those out with metal chassis, which they're going to do. We actually did have one of our 24-hour races was the 962 with a metal chassis.
Let's get started with the BRM Prototypes. That is the beautiful Ford GT4 Mk1. And here we have the Mk1, which is a completely different body shell, different tooling. Excellent job on this. Really like how they've done that. And here are the lovely 240Zs or Zs, wherever you're from. And you've got 2 body types, the road going style version and then the flared arch racing type. And that livery there is absolutely beautiful in the red, white and blue. And here are the white kits, and I'd just like to say fantastic job by BRM and Alan, who co-developed these. These are definitely going into our collection.
So let's have a chat about this upcoming
little race.
Yeah, I'm just going to put up the banner there, and let me just share my screen and let me bring up this. All right. So I think now we're both decided. So talk to us about this amazing event coming up.
Okay. Well, as you see there, obviously from the 9th through the 12th, the 24-hour race is the kind of the final part of the weekend. Now that is from Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning until Sunday about 11. So it runs for 24 actual hours of track time. But prior to that, on the 9th, every team will be given a box. Oh, I can't. Well, my camera there still. Yeah, get the box with the GT4 Mk1 and all the spare parts that are allowed for the race. At 10 o'clock on the Thursday morning, they'll get that, and then they'll start building their cars and get them ready for combat, for the battle, the 24-hour battle to come. And some teams will, rush to get them on the track. The cars are basically assembled, but they're not ready to run. I mean, you're going to do your gear, set your gearing up, set your tires. You're not allowed to restructure it to make it fairly easy to control, because you're not allowed to have tire machines. You're not allowed to break in your motors with a battery or any of those things. So it's the same for everybody, because otherwise people have got high-tech tools can gain an advantage immediately. So everybody will run their cars on the track to break them in. We supply the wheels and tires, so there's no truing needed or any of that. All the parts are ready to be used. But some people will build their car quickly and then go out and do laps just to break everything in. Others will spend more time reinforcing with shoe glue the front and the rear of the car so it doesn't get broken in a crash, putting their lights in and getting them working. So it's really up to how you decide to manage your time. So that's from 10 till 2 on the Thursday, and then at 2 o'clock, all the cars will go back into technical inspection. They're all locked away, so nobody can do anything untoward. And then we'll have the first of our sprint races, which I've got to remember. I think that's I don't remember. Is it GT90s, I think? Yeah. Yes, it is. It's the GT9. I'm trying to read my print. The GT90s are first. Yeah. And that one, they'll run them stock. So no added advantage from people that have had one for a long time, doing all sorts of tuning things. And I'm a big fan of trying to keep the cars fairly stock. That doesn't mean you can't blueprint and you can't do race preparation on them. Absolutely you can. And gear mesh, but everybody will run the same motor, the same gear mesh, and they'll run BRM sponge tires. The only thing, we'll have a minimum height to make sure that the cars aren't going to damage the track, but they'll be their own tires for that race. Yeah. And then the second race on the Thursday, I believe, if I remember how we scheduled it right, is I'm trying to read the print here, is the Revo slots, GT1s and GT2s. Yep. And on that, the GT1s will run on Revo slot sponge, and the GT2s will run on handout rubber tires. Okay. And the reason it's easier to manipulate rubber tires than it is sponge, because everybody running sponge, we run in the same sponge tires from Revo slot. For rubber tires, we make various different compounds. So everybody will run the same compound. They'll be handed out before the race. People fit the tires, and then they can practice with those and then race. And then that will be run, subject to how many people enter it. It'll be run either as 2 separate races or one big race but scored separate. I mean, depending on how many teams we get in the end, it looks like we'll probably get 10 or 11 teams. If we have 10 teams and there was 4 people on each team, that would be potentially 40 drivers. If they all want to enter, and they all have GT1s and all have GT2s, we'll run a GT1 race and then a GT2. Yeah. But if we only had a smaller field, we'd run it mixed and then score them separately. And then those cars get put away, and then we go back to practice with the GT40s. And I think there's time schedule, which is has to be somewhat flexible or fluid, because depending on how many races we have and how things go. But I think it's about 5 o'clock. We go back to testing and tuning for the 24-hour, and including we'll do a scheduled night run before the end of the night on Thursday, so as people know their lights are working. And then the cars are all locked away. Everybody has to give their car and all their spare parts and tools back, because even the tools, we have to make sure that they're only using tools that would be allowed. Otherwise, somebody could have a tire durometer or a tire machine or whatever. So everybody has the same access. There'll be a dyno for check-in in the pit room, and everybody builds their cars in front of everybody else. So there's nobody.
I really like that setup, Alan. And the fact that you're going to be racing and getting a prototype GT40, car as well as part of that is great, I think. And then you've got actually, you get prep the vehicle, everything there. It's I've not seen that before, and I really think that's I really like the idea of that.
We found it for two reasons. We found it useful to prove a new car coming out, which obviously the GT40 will be a new car. This will be the first real races for it.
Yeah.
But also, it's easier to control a race if everybody has the same parts. We hand out all the parts. You'll get motor, you'll get extra tires, all the extra parts you'll need. And if somebody was to go through the parts that they've been given in the entry fee, we will hand out extra parts from race control during the race if needed. I don't think they will be, because we ran a similar car last year and we got through on 2 sets of tires. In fact, most teams got through on 1 set. And all right, a motor can fail. You get a spare motor, but if it did, obviously we'd have other motors.
Yeah.
And I think it adds to the value of the event. I mean, it sounds like it's an expensive event, $300, but that's for up to 6 people on a team, which makes it $50 a person.
Yeah.
For Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday racing. It's a lot of racing, a lot of fun. And it just makes it. I've been to big races where everything was your own equipment.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 days were just technical inspection, because it was so easy to have an advantage, because there's a plethora of parts out there from all sorts of different manufacturers.
Yeah.
And for BRM and my company, we want to prove that the BRM car is good. So it'll be BRM brake, BRM guides, BRM car, motor, tires, everything is BRM. And I did have a gentleman say to me one time, well, why won't you allow Palmer brake? I said, well, because we're trying to prove a point that this brake is good enough. This is good enough for the concept. And he said, well, yeah, but that won't last. I'm like, well, we need to know that if it won't. And part of it also is we want there to be some wear and tear, because if there's nothing we've ever replaced, then it just becomes just about speed. And people come up with very clever ways of making sure that they don't run out of braid. You'll see some of those ideas because they're done visibly in front of other people if you want to watch. And also, so anyway, so we're moving forward. So then they all gets boxed away. Then Friday morning, you'll get your cars back out, and people that didn't get there till Friday will get their car and start building. And then Friday, that's from 10 till 2 again. And then I think at 3 o'clock, we do our last sprint race. And that is the mini cars and group 2s. And that will be on handout rubber. Stock cars, stock gearing, everything the same as it would come out the box. Blueprinting again obviously is allowed. No added weight is allowed on any of these classes, because we're looking to try and find the best mechanic and drivers, not the most creative way of interpreting the rules, which can happen. So then after that there will be the Friday. So when we're getting it towards the end of the Friday afternoon, there'll be final testing, and then we call all the cars in. The actual time will be announced when we see how many teams, etc. But it's somewhere around 7 o'clock. We'll call all the cars in for a technical inspection, and once they're inspected, they're frozen. There's nothing more you can do. So if your car isn't finished, then you'd have to work on it under green on the Saturday morning when the race starts, which would be hard, and we don't want to have to do that to anybody. But we also have to set a time limit, otherwise there'll be people here at midnight still building their cars. So then after that, there will be qualifying, and then qualifying sets it sets the grid as to what lanes you're starting, and also then it sets which corner your team will look after for the whole race. And we found it works really well if you have corner number one the whole race. You can't say you didn't know what corner you were in. You can't say you didn't know where you needed to position yourself. You know, do the cars come off going into the corner? Not very often. It's usually middle or exit. So sitting at the beginning of the corner, you're forever getting up and getting the car. So you get used to your corner and you do a good job with it.
Yeah.
And then we obviously, if we have anybody that has any sort of difficulty, we make sure that they're not in corners where, you know, if their mobility is not as good on the team. But yeah, so that means qualifying is worth something.
Yeah.
If only that it's worth what lane do you want to start in. If you're pole, you choose what lane. It makes for a little bit of fun, but there's no extra points for it. But it does give a little bit of strategy. Then everything gets boxed back up, and we all go home and sleep. Maybe go out and have something to eat, and then rest. And then on the Saturday at like 9:30, the cars will go on the grid. I think we open it at 9 o'clock. 9:30, the cars go on the grid, ready for the race. One thing I forgot to mention is when we do the technical inspection, all the cars will be lined up on the grid after the technical inspection, and at that time, any one member from every team can inspect the cars visually. They can't pick them up. If they want them picked up, they have to ask me to pick them up, and they look underneath or whatever. And at that time, they can make a protest if they feel there's something untoward or a mistake that another team's made, or something has been introduced that no one noticed. So they get a chance to fix it for free. There's no fee for that protest. But once we start the race, to stop bad feeling, I found that what works best is it's a $50 fee to protest another team. Yeah. If you're right, you get your $50 back. Okay. If you're wrong, I get it. I keep it goes into the kitty for the next 24 hours. But I've not had to do it, but it changed it. It used to be I would call people out if I felt, but then I was always the bad guy. And as I race as well, it's very difficult to be everywhere and everything. Yeah. And it was a lot easier to put the onus on the teams and also on the driver. If you know you've lost your rear wing, and we've told you you've lost your rear wing, and you want to keep going, we just stop scoring your laps. So that makes you come in. But before, I just keep saying, team number so-and-so, you got to come in. And you do that for half an hour, and they still wouldn't come in. Well, the car still runs. And it's like, yeah, but you've got to come in because that's one of the rules. And the only rules we have on the cars, you've got to have, in the dark, you've got to have at least one headlight and one tail light operating. You can't be running around with no rear lights or no front lights.
Yeah.
The wing issue, if it's a wing, which with the GT4 is, I think on the Mark II, it will be a little, it's not die cast. I don't know why I'm having a mental block there. A little piece of steel mounted on the back there. If you lose that, which if you use Shugu, you won't. But if you lose that, you'd have to stop and fit it. If you're told it's off. Now, that is another thing. We also rely on the corner workers helping out. If something comes off a car in a crash, they put the car back on, then they have to let race control know we've got to part from this car. Now, headlight lenses, hubcap, we're not going to penalize cars for that. Only something that in the real world would be devastating to the car, and a rear winglet or wing would be, because it would affect the ground effect. But headlight lens, people have finished Le Mans, the real Le Mans, with a flashlight taped on the front of their car.
That's so 5112M with
a
patch quilt by the time it got over the line.
Exactly. So people repair things. You can't have anything dragging, and I will inspect the cars throughout the 24 hours for ground clearance. And if I find a car that is close to the limit, I'll let them know. Yeah, I won't tell them how close, But I let them know you probably need to think about pitting. And if it's below the limit, then they have to pit under green. All your pit stops are under green. And then the other thing, which may be different anywhere else, when we do lane changes, and by the way, our lanes are numbered, not coloured.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason we did that is because we've never found anybody that didn't know what a number 1 was against a number 3.
Yeah.
But we've found lots of times people have trouble with red and yellow or red and green, and a lot of European tracks are like this. They're numbered. So, but what you're not allowed to do is you move your car, you pick it up, you put it into the lane it's going into. You change the sticker on the window. You're not allowed to put your hand under the car and feel the temperature of the motor. You're not allowed to turn it upside down and look at the brake, because now you're doing a pit stop.
Yeah.
And that has to be in the pit.
Yeah.
So we try to keep it, that it's fair for everybody and it's fun. And we want people to push the car to the limit of when they've got to change a tire, but we can't have them running around with the chassis dragging on the track.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that covers most everything. And then it's 51 minutes per lane.
Yeah, I was asked then as well as how long of a stint does each team member do?
Yep. Yeah. Now you can change in less than that, but you would have to put down your controller or unplug your controller and come down off the driver's stand before the other person went up, because otherwise it gets too busy with people. Because if we've got 10 lanes running, we'll have people back to back because we run both tracks. So that's the other challenge: is you run a long track, the 6 lane, which, as we said earlier, is 135 feet, and you run the fast track, the 8 lane, which is 116. So when you're on the 8 lane, you're making up laps, but you've got to run the 6 lane as well. So twice. So you run twice through. So at the 12-hour mark, you'll be halfway through. That's when people have to put their lights on in a pit stop, and then on the first hour. After the first hour of the second half, I start turning the lights off in the building, and our lights were designed so they go off across the room, and the last light that goes off is the one on our orange back wall to signify the sunset. And then 6 hours later, I start bringing them back on, and the sun rises. Obviously, it rises in the same place as it's set, which hopefully will never happen in the real world, but. That would be bad news. So the sun rises, and then I start bringing on the banks of lights till we're fully lit again, and that's a shot in the arm for everybody. But it's funny because most people are quicker at night, and the reason I think is that there is little noise, and by noise I mean the visual noise of other people and what they're doing and the other cars, because all you can really focus on is your lights, and everybody has the same lights. So we did have a little bit of a incident last year where somebody had yellow headlights. There won't be any of that. We made them. They took them off once we realised that they had yellow lights, because that's an advantage. And so everybody will have clear lights. But you get used to your car, and it's amazing how well people will drive. And when I raced, I did a lot of 24-hour endurance races on motorcycles, and most people went quicker at night there because you can't see anything else other than what you get zoned in on what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then the corner workers have flashlights for at night, and the pit room, you have to go into it before you turn the light on, because otherwise you radiate light out into the room and blind everybody. So the track room is in complete darkness except for a little gutter light down the walkway to the bathrooms.
Looking forward to experiencing all of that in the flesh.
It's different. I mean, we're trying to do our own thing, but we're trying to make it fair and fun, and be consequences. So people, there's two pit stops on the track, one on the 6, one on the 8. You have to bring your car in and stop there, and then somebody takes it over to the pit room before you can look at it as you're walking over to the pit room. But even if you look at it and you notice what it is, and you fix it before you get to the pit room, you have to go in the pit room and come back out before you start.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Just try and keep it fair for everyone.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But it'll be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to people coming.
Thanks for inviting us up, by the way.
Oh no, listen. I mean, I think with what you've been doing and visiting other events, it's really important to have people come. I know some of the other guys that went to the one down in California, Electric Dreams, can't come all the way from, I think, Travis is back to Australia now, or going back there, isn't he?
He
So it's amazing he came over to that one. But no, you're gonna have to fly the flag. We'll stream it live on YouTube as well, but anybody else can jump in. That'll be fun. And it's about showing people.
Yeah,
it's fun. And the last thing, just in closing, I know I've been rambling on a lot about the 24-hour, but if there are people out there that see this and you want to come and be part of it,
that's what
you can come and enter just the sprints if you want. It's $15 for each sprint race, but if you add that up, that's $45. If you join a team, it's going to be $50. Because, well, most teams, because there usually be 6 people. So there will be teams that are looking for a driver, and there'll be teams of all levels. I mean, we had a team last year that had never run before, never run on a big track before, and they had a great time. And you know, you've got to be, as a team that's one of the faster teams, you've got to be mindful, because this happens in real life at Le Mans. You have the GT3s or whatever that are going 120 mile an hour, and then you have the prototypes that are doing 200 mile an hour. You've got to work with the other people. Can't blame them because they're going slower. I mean, we don't want it to be elitist. We want to include anybody that wants to come. Come as an individual, come as a team of newbies. There's no shame in that. You'll know a lot more about racing slot cars when you leave it. I can assure you.
That's for sure. So then to get in touch, then to actually sign up, what's the process for that for anybody?
Well, 2 things. One, you can sign up if you've got a team you want to put in. There is an entry on 132 Slot Car, and I've posted it up various places as well. You can click on that link and that'll take you in. It's $300. And the other way, if you're an individual and you're not sure, just email me at scaleracing1@gmail.com. I think that says that on the bottom of there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm just going to scroll down through here.
Thank you.
Again,
I could have done with that while I was trying to remember everything we're doing.
I was just testing you out, you know.
Yeah, there you go. How did I do?
We're up to speed. You did pretty well, I have to say. I'm just going to scroll down toward the end.
I think it's at the bottom somewhere. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So if they email me at scaleracing1@gmail.com and say, hey, I want to come, title their email 24 Hours of Tacoma, we will find a team. We created 2 teams last year from people that came from different parts of the country. They all had a great time. They, you know, and they got to meet new people as well. I mean, and I think that's the other thing Sasha said about why did I do this? It's the camaraderie. I mean, I missed that from real racing because, you know, you get to know all these people that are focused on the same thing as you. And in their other walks of their life, you may not have anything in common with them, but in this part of their life, you do. And I like that camaraderie and friendship, and that can last a lifetime. And it gets people out of their shell, gets them away from a computer screen all the time. And, you know, you can make it's amazing how many people find other friends, and you know, oh, well, we could go over to their track. And I mean, I know it's a big country, but it's not that big if you want to go experience somebody else's track. I've been to tracks in New Jersey, Philadelphia, down in California, across to Atlanta, and that was just for slot cars. And then I've done the same sort of thing with motorcycles. But you got to go outside your comfort limit and see if you think you're good, see how good you are. And if you want to learn, you'll learn a lot. And if you just want to meet people and have fun, you'll have a good time.
It's what it's all about. I think, you know,
it's got to.
People are, you know, as important or even more important than, it's all fun and it's great time to be had. But a lot of the great aspects are that you get to meet so many different people. And
no, it is. It's a social thing. I mean, and slot cars can't exist well. It can't exist well if you don't have other people to play. If you like playing Monopoly on your own, you're going to win, but you're also going to come last.
You know, now it depends on how many bourbons, you know.
Okay, well, yeah. Or how much money you stash under the board. That was always my trick as a kid. Exactly. Like, I thought you were broke. Well, I got a little bit more. I'd buy that hotel.
But no, well, look, we better wrap it up there. But we really wanted to thank you for coming on, and it's been great fun having a chat, getting to know you a little bit better, and obviously then hearing about this great event. So yeah, anybody, please get in touch with Alan if you're interested in coming. Don't be concerned if you can't get a full team together. As Alan said, they will find a place for you and you will get to it. So come up and have a bit of fun. As I said, me and Central are there, and we'll do a bit of filming and do some, document the weekends, and we'll be posting that for people who don't have the ability to get there.
Good. No, I mean, I'm really looking forward to meeting the pair of you. I think it's going to be, it's going to be a good time, and I want to see it. I'm frightened though that Sasha's going to beat me on my own track, but hey, if it happens, you have to learn. You have to learn to pass the whatever, the sword or whatever.
We'll wrap it up there then.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I could talk all day about the hobby. I love it.
What could we? I better have to get Sasha something to eat.
I gotta get some work done today. But we'll chat again, and some things about setup of cars and that. I'd love to help you with that, because that helps everybody.
Well, thanks. It's been a pleasure having you, and as always,
thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.
Bye for now.